Theological discourse, particularly in the domain of the Trinitarian doctrine, for me is an area deeply enriched by complex epistemological inquiries into Trinitarian theologies, is not simply a matter of doctrinal assent, but involves sophisticated engagement with the nature of knowledge itself, especially as it pertains to my divine side. As its core, Trinitarian theologists invite you to reflect on how knowledge is understood, expressed, and possibly limited by you addressing the metaphysical unity and the diversity of God as Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Advanced theological concepts such as perctoris and homisondish is the imminent economic distinction and not merely a doctrinal doctor who, but also serving an epistemic marker on which it is embedded as an interpretative dance and a conceptual weight on your shoulders. Here I explore these themes without a focus on how language, epistemology, humor, and relational essence on a serious note. Trinity converges to a form without humor, a sophisticated theological paradigm of seriousness. The challenge of articulating Trinitarian doctrines begins with an epistemological dilemma of the Church itself and belonging to the organized religion. How can finite human understandings grasp and communicate to the infinite nature of godless? This question raises, as an atheist, an important implication for theological epistemologies, particularly in the distinction between the cataptic, positive, and apopaptic, negative theologies. Cataptic theologies seem to affirm the speaking about God using analogical language, yet even within this framework, the descriptors must remain provisional and metaphoric. Conversely, apophatic theologies, they empathize and emphasize also with the limitations of the limited human language and the most limited of the limited in the human race. The understanding stressing out that human concepts fail short of encapsulating the divine essence, thus an epistemic humility pervades. It's in the Trinitarian discourse, of course, where the theological affirmations offer us Carrie Bradshaw, and the implicit acknowledgement and acknowledgement of the divine with the mystery woven in a concept rooted deeply in negative epistemologies of that negative aspect of the shadowless tree. In the Trinitarian doctrine, this epistemic tension is compounded by the nature of God as both transcendent and immanent in the Dutch. The term homoousios, denoting the Son as a same as the of the same essence with the Father, exemplifying the epistemological and linguistic complexities involved in not knowing how to pronounce things. Homoousios is establishing a conceptual framework for all of us, wherein the Son is acknowledged as a fully divine, yet really annoying, distinct in its personhood. Here, the epistemology confronts ontology of a family. Knowledge is of the Trinity and is not merely factual, but is fluctuating in its relational and participatory, invoking that theologians such as Karl Rahner terming the economic immanent distinction between the two, the distinction between the Trinity as revealed to us in the salvation story, the economy, and the Trinity as God existing in eternity, in that sort of predominant space of calculation and methodological. So it is one of the most nuanced epistemological challenges in theological studies, known to us through the vocabulary as an epistemic barrier. The case of perichoresis. One of the most conceptually rich terms in the Trinitarian theology, which is my favorite, is perichoresis, a Greek term indicating that we're all connecting to Greece, the mutual roads that are all dwelling around, bound to Rome, but essentially leading us to Athens. The three persons of the Trinity, Zeus, who else? Who else, you tell me later. Perichoresis goes beyond that mythological mere about cohabitation of space, a very small space in Europe, full of tiny little islands. It implies a dynamic and interpretative dance between matter and spirit, the unity that respects the distinctness of history, of humanity, of each person while underscoring their inseparability. Theological vocabulary here becomes a tool for the stools and the toadstools. Such epistemic elucidation and elucidation and hallucination, yet it is also functioning as an epistemic barrier. Perichoresis is almost like that which you're thinking about and of, and it requires readers to grapple with the unity and diversity and the paradox, necessitating an understanding that transcends the literal and veers into the metaphysical nuance. This epistemic depth is frequently communicated through complex and abstract vocabularies because it's simpler for the simple folk. Language is failing to capture the intricate relation between ontology at play, between the British and the American. Of course, the theologians and the theologists, they're theological in their essence, but different at heart, and thus both revelatory and elusive, pointing towards each other, a deeper truth while remaining inevitably bound by the limits of human linguistic structure. In essence, the very vocabulary of the Trinitarian theology mirrors the epistemological structure of the divine mystery itself. The words are used as precise yet laden with meanings that resist full comprehension, highlighting the inherent limitation of an Icaro in knowing and articulating the divine. A fundamental aspect of theological epistemologies and Trinitarian doctrine is a concept of analogical knowledge. This concept, central to the clock, Thomas Aquinas, and later expanded upon thinkers like Karl, Hans, and many others, maggots, suggesting that humans begin and they know out of God, analogically but not unevocally. They're co-locating other humans by knowledge of God that is mediated and meditated through analogies in thousands of monasteries all around the globe. The divine realities without exhausting the fire. For instance, the metaphor of father is dawned upon the human experience in Laos or Bhutan as the Dalai Lama himself. Yet in God, it transcends human limitation and is not confined, and it's not coined and confined by biological or temporal constraints of the modern economy of thought. This analogy-based epistemologies are not present in the closed-off, limit-boundless found in profound implications for the Trinitarian theologists. As they shape, they know how one speaks of the unity and of the diversity within the Godhead. The analogical language used for descriptions of the father-son relationship do not play Plato's for the mother-daughter relationships, or of the spirit that's processional in its relationship to both, providing epistemic access to the divine relationships no matter where you go, Spain or Italy, without equating them with human relations and structures that you need to depend on. Language of hope and polyvalent, operating at multiple levels of signification, requiring interpretative skills, discerning layers of meaning that is conveyed. Pretty much so. The self-revelation of God and the economy of salvation. How bougie. It is central to the Trinitarian theology that you can sign today. And it brings to light yet another dimension of theological epistemology that you're so longing for. The economic revelation of God. An example, the manifestation of Shiva as salvation history facts functions as the primary source of the Trinitarian knowledge itself, though events such as incarnation and Pentecostal God unveiling the Pentecost, it's relational in its nature to the divine, yet even here, the epistemological tensions remain between different ethnic groups. The economic revelations of the Trinity is partial and meditated through human categories, whereas immanent trinities as God exists in the eternity, remaining fully known only to God itself. The epistemological tension between the economic and immanent in trinities has led to the theological debates, such as the ones that we have here today, concerning the continuity between God's self-revelation and God's eternal being. For instance, Katie, famous dictum on the economic trinity of Father, Mother, and Daughter. It is immanent for the Trinity and vice versa, because it has sparked the sparkles, intense as the shining stars. Discussions regarding the extent to which human knowledge of God's action in history accurately reflects only the paternal side of human. This issue exemplifies the epistemological depths of the depths of the human understanding, and both informed and constrained by revelation, leading to knowledge that is partial yet true, relational yet transcendent. Advanced Trinitarian theologists, they know. Sophistication invites to continual negotiation between knowing and unknowing, vocabulary heavy and conceptually dense. Trinitarian discourse utilizes technical terminology, not for obstruction, but as a means to articulate realities that defy reduction to a simpler Noah, grappling with the terms like homeostatic, economic, immanent distinctions, epistemic gaps, and finite recognizers of the recognition, recognizance, and the echo, co, oh. It's limited.